Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. If you've recently received a 100% VA disability rating, first, let me say congratulations. I know that may sound like an unusual thing to say because none of us celebrates becoming disabled, but what I am acknowledging is that after what is often years of paperwork, examination, denials, appeals, and frustration, you finally reached a point where the Department of Veterans Affairs has recognized the full extent of your service-connected disabilities. For many veterans, that decision feels like crossing the finish line, and then almost immediately another question shows up. Should I keep filing VA claims? I have heard that question thousands of times over the years. Some veterans believe the answer is absolutely yes. They think every condition should be claimed no matter what. Others believe the answer is absolutely no. They think filing another claim, often reaching 100%, is asking for trouble. The truth is that both positions are incomplete. Today, we're going to have a conversation that I wish every veteran could hear before making another decision about filing a claim. Not because I want to tell you what to do, but because I want to help you understand how to think about the decision. Now, before I go further, let me make one important point. This video is intended for educational purposes. Every veteran's circumstances are different, and nothing in this video should be taken as individual legal or claims advice. My goal is to help you understand the principles so you can make informed decisions based on your own situation. Over the past 2 decades, as a VA adjudicator and working as a homeless veterans coordinator and outreach coordinator, I have reviewed thousands of claims. I have seen veterans leave benefits on the table because they assumed there was nothing left to pursue after reaching 100%. I've also seen veterans file claim after claim without understanding whether those claims would actually improve their situation. Neither extreme is the goal. The goal is wisdom. I remember reviewing the file of a veteran who had finally reached 100% disability rating after years of fighting for recognition. He had done everything right. He had gathered the evidence. He had attended examinations. He responded to requests. He stayed engaged throughout the entire process. When the decision finally came, it was exactly what he had hoped for. 100%, permanent and total. Now, most people would have expected that to be the end of the story. Well, instead, it became the beginning of another chapter. Only a few months later, another claim arrived. Then another. Then another. Every ache, every pain, every diagnosis, every symptom became another claim. As I reviewed the file, one question kept coming to mind. Not whether the veteran could file another claim, whether he should. Now, there's a difference, and understanding that difference can save veterans unnecessary stress while also helping others recognize opportunities they didn't know existed. That's what this video is about. So let's start by clearing up one of the biggest misunderstandings in the VA system. When someone says, "I'm 100% disabled," that sounds pretty straightforward. But in reality, several very different situations can lead to that statement. Some veterans receive a scheduler 100% rating because their combined evaluations reach 100% under the VA's rating schedule. Others receive compensation at the 100% rate because they are granted individual unemployability, often called TDIU. Some veterans have 100% rating that is also considered permanent and total. Others have 100% ratings that are not considered permanent and total. Those differences matter. They affect future planning. They affect employment in some circumstances. They affect additional benefits, and they affect how you should evaluate future claims. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see is veterans treating every 100% rating exactly the same. They're not. If you've never taken the time to understand exactly how your rating was awarded, that is one of the biggest investments you can make. Know your own file. Know your decision letter. Know your effective dates. Know whether your rating is considered permanent and total. Knowledge removes unnecessary fear. It also helps prevent unnecessary mistakes. Now, here's another misconception. Some veterans believe that once they reach 100%, they are now somehow locked out of the future filing of claims. That isn't true. The VA doesn't have a rule that says you lose the ability to submit another claim simply because you've reached 100%. You absolutely can file another claim. But notice the word I used, can. Now, the more important question is whether filing serves a meaningful purpose. Throughout this video, I want you to replace one question with another. Stop asking, can I file? Start asking, what will filing accomplish? That single shift in thinking changes everything, because the purpose of filing a claim isn't simply to add another condition to your list. The purpose is to improve or protect your benefits in a meaningful way. Sometimes another claim absolutely does that. Sometimes it doesn't. Let's talk about situations where filing another claim can make excellent sense. Okay? The first is when Congress or the VA recognizes a new presumptive condition. This has happened repeatedly over the years. Entire groups of veterans who were previously denied suddenly became eligible because the law changed or because medical science developed a better understanding of toxic exposures and long-term health effects. Now, if you're eligible under a new law presumption, ignoring that opportunity simply because you're already at 100% could be a mistake. The second situation involves conditions that may qualify you for benefits beyond the standard 100% compensation rate. Many veterans don't realize that 100% is not always the highest level of monthly compensation available. There are additional benefits under certain circumstances. We'll spend much more time discussing those later in this video because they're often overlooked. The third situation involves protecting your family. Sometimes a newly recognized service-connected condition becomes important years later. It may affect survivor benefits. It may affect future eligibility for other programs. It may become medically significant in ways no one anticipated. Thinking only about today's monthly payment may cause you to overlook tomorrow's protection. That's why I encourage veterans to think beyond the next deposit. Think long-term. Think strategically. Think like someone building a legacy instead of simply collecting a benefit. That's true not only for VA disability, it's true for military retirement, it's true for investing, it's true for estate planning, and certainly true for understanding your earned benefits. Look, I've often said on this channel that veterans spend years learning how to win benefits, but very little time learning how to manage them. Those are two different skills. Winning benefits require evidence. Managing benefits requires wisdom. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you probably noticed that I don't believe in making decisions based on fear. Unfortunately, fear drives a lot of conversations about VA disability. Some people will tell you, never file another claim. Others will tell you, file everything immediately. Those blanket statements ignore something very important. That's context. Every veteran situation is different. Every medical history is different. Every decision letter is different. Every future goal is different. My job today isn't to give you a one-size-fits-all answer. My job is to help you understand the framework that experienced adjudicators use when evaluating these situations. Because once you understand the framework, you'll be in a much stronger position to make good decisions for yourself and your family. Now, here's the encouraging part. You don't have to become an expert in VA law overnight. You simply need to ask better questions. Instead of asking, can I file another claim? Ask, will this protect additional benefits? Will this increase eligibility for another program? Will this correct an important error? Will this strengthen protections for my family? Will this qualify me for benefits beyond what I'm already receiving? Those are the questions that experienced veterans eventually learn to ask. And next, we're going to talk about one of the biggest reasons why filing another claim after reaching 100% can actually make financial sense, even when your disability compensation doesn't appear to increase. Because this is where many veterans unknowingly leave thousands of dollars in benefits on the table. We're going to talk about that next. And by the way, if you've made it this far, you've probably realized that this conversation isn't really about filing claims. It's about making informed decisions. And that's an important distinction. Throughout my career, I have seen two very different types of veterans. The first veteran asks, how many claims can I file? The second veteran asks, what is the smartest decision for my long-term future? Those veterans often end up in very different places. One spends years chasing every possible percentage. The other spends years building security for themselves and their family. I want you to become the second veteran. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest reasons another claim might actually make sense after you've already reached 100% disability rating. And that reason is something called special monthly compensation, commonly referred to as SMC. If you've never heard of it before, don't worry, you're not alone. Many veterans receive 100% disability rating and never realize there are circumstances where additional compensation may be available because of the severity of the unique impact of certain disabilities. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a law school lecture, but I do want you to understand the principle. The VA recognizes that some disabilities create hardships that go beyond what is contemplated by the standard rating schedule. For example, certain combinations of disabilities, the loss or loss of use of a particular body parts, the need for regular aid and attendance, or being substantially confined to your home under qualifying circumstances can, in some situations, result in special monthly compensation. Now, the important takeaway isn't memorizing every category. The important takeaway is this: if a newly service-connected condition could qualify you for additional benefits beyond the standard 100% rate, then filing another claim may be absolutely worth considering. Now, notice what just happened. The purpose of the claim changed. You're no longer chasing another percentage. You're evaluating whether additional benefits are legally available based on your circumstances. That's a completely different mindset. Now, here's another reason a future claim may be worthwhile. Let's talk about effective dates. Most veterans focus on percentages. Experienced veterans also pay attention to the dates because dates often determine money. Imagine you have two veterans who ultimately receive exactly the same disability rating. One veteran has an effective date that goes back several years. The other veteran has an effective date from, last month. Those two veterans may have identical ratings, but the retroactive compensation could be dramatically different. Understanding effective dates is one of the most valuable pieces of knowledge a veteran can have. That's one reason I always encourage veterans to read their decision letters carefully. Don't just look for the percentage. Read the explanation. Read the rationale. Read the effective date. Understand why the VA made the decision it made. Knowledge is power. Now, let's talk about another situation that deserves attention. Secondary service connection. One disability often affects another. A knee injury changes the way you walk. The altered gait eventually affects your hips. Your hips affect your back. Your back affects your posture. Your posture contributes to additional problems over time, or perhaps chronic pain contributes to depression or anxiety, or medications prescribed for one condition create complications elsewhere. These aren't unusual scenarios. Actually, they're quite common. Sometimes establishing secondary service connection serves an important purpose, even if you're already receiving compensation at the 100% level. Again, the question isn't simply, can I file? The question is, what purpose does this filing serve? Is it protecting future benefits? Is it documenting the progression of service-connected disabilities? Could it establish entitlement, something beyond your current compensation? Those are thoughtful questions. Now, let me pause here and address something I hear all the time. People will say, if I'm already receiving the maximum monthly payment, why should I care whether an additional condition becomes service-connected? That's actually, a very reasonable question. The answer depends on your individual circumstances. For some veterans, another service-connected condition may have little practical effect. For others, it could have significant implications for additional compensation, survivor benefits, future medical considerations, or eligibility for other programs. That's why blanket advice is rarely good advice. Context always matters. Okay? Now, let's shift gears and talk about another issue that doesn't receive enough attention: correcting errors. Occasionally, the VA makes mistakes. Veterans are human. VA employees are human. Medical professionals are human. Errors happen. Sometimes evidence wasn't considered. Sometimes the law wasn't applied correctly. Sometimes the effective date is wrong. Sometimes a condition was improperly denied years ago. There are mechanisms available for addressing certain errors depending on the facts and the applicable law. I'm not suggesting that every disagreement means an error occurred. Far from it. But I am saying this: never assume that because you've reached 100% rating, every prior decision suddenly becomes irrelevant. Sometimes correcting an important error can still matter. Okay? Now let's broaden the conversation. Okay? We're going to broaden it a little bit. Beyond the monthly compensation rate, that is. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see veterans make is measuring every decision only by monthly deposit. There's so much more to your earned benefits than that. Now, depending on your state, service-connected disabilities may affect property tax exemptions, education benefits, recreational licenses, vehicle registration, employment preferences, state veteran benefits, dental eligibility, healthcare priorities, support for dependents, and numerous other programs. Some of those benefits exist because of your overall disability status. Others may depend on specific findings or eligibility requirements. That's why understanding the entire picture is so important. Now, one of the things I emphasize repeatedly on this channel is that wealth isn't simply about income. It's about maximizing every resource you've earned. Military retirement, VA disability, thrift savings plan, Social Security, health care, tax advantages, estate planning, assurances. When those pieces work together, veterans often build far more financial security than they ever imagined possible. That's why I don't think of myself as simply teaching VA claims. I think of myself as teaching veterans how to build a secure future. And sometimes that means telling someone to file another claim. Other times it means telling them to pause, to gather more information, and think strategically before making another move. Because not every good decision is the fastest decision. Sometimes wisdom looks like patience. Sometimes wisdom looks like asking another question before submitting another application. And sometimes wisdom means recognizing that your greatest opportunity isn't another disability percentage, it's learning how to fully use the benefits you've already earned. Now, there is one question that almost every veteran eventually asks once we reach this point in the conversation. It's probably the question you've been waiting for. If I file another claim after reaching 100%, could the VA review my file? That question creates more anxiety than almost any other topic in the disability system. So in the final part of this video, we're going to separate fact from fear. We're going to talk honestly about reviews, common misconceptions, when caution is appropriate, when concern is unnecessary, and I'll leave you with the exact decision-making framework I would use if I were advising a close friend or a member of my own family. Because my goal isn't simply to help you win benefits. My goal is to help you make wise decisions that protect your future for years to come. So now we've arrived at the question that causes more anxiety than almost any other. If I file another claim after receiving a 100% VA disability rating, will the VA review my file? The short answer is this. A new claim can result in the VA reviewing evidence that is relevant to the claim being decided. But that's a very different statement than saying every veteran who files another claim is automatically going to lose benefits. Those are not the same thing. Unfortunately, this topic has become filled with myths, fears, and absolute statements that simply aren't helpful. You hear someone say, never file another claim. They'll take everything away. Then you'll hear someone else say, don't worry about it. Nothing can happen. Neither extreme is responsible. The truth, as it often does, lives somewhere in the middle. The VA has a responsibility to make accurate decisions based on the evidence and the law. When you submit a new claim, the VA evaluates the claim you submitted. Depending on the facts of the case, that process may involve reviewing records, requesting examinations, or evaluating how the new issue relates to existing service-connected condition. That's why every filing decision deserves thoughtful consideration. Not fear, not panic, not internet rumors, thoughtful consideration. This is one of the reasons I encourage veterans to slow down before clicking the submit button. Ask yourself a few questions, okay? Will this claim potentially qualify me for additional compensation or benefits? Am I filing because this condition genuinely matters? Or am I filing simply because someone on social media told me to claim everything? The last question may sound blunt, but it's important. There is an enormous amount of misinformation circulating online. Some advice is excellent, some advice is incomplete, and some advice is just simply wrong. I've seen veterans become terrified because of stories that lack important context. I've also seen veterans ignore legitimate opportunities because someone convinced them that they should never file another claim under any circumstances. Neither approach serves veterans well. Now, let's go back to the veteran I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Remember that gentleman who continued filing claim after reaching 100%? As I reviewed his files, something became very clear. He wasn't filing because each claim served a meaningful purpose. He was filing because he believed filing itself was the goal. That's an easy trap to fall into, especially after you spent years fighting for benefits. The claim process becomes familiar. They learn the language, they learn the forms, they learn the procedures. Eventually, filing another claim can almost become a habit. But habits aren't strategies. Winning one battle doesn't mean every future battle needs to be fought. Sometimes the wisest decision is moving into a different phase of life. I often think about my military service. When we first joined the military, our focus was on surviving basic training. Then it became earning promotions, then leadership, then retirement planning. Every stage required a different mindset. Receiving a 100% disability rating often represents a similar transition. For years, your focus may have been on proving your entitlement to benefits. Now your focus should begin shifting toward protecting those benefits, understanding them, maximizing additional programs available to you, building wealth, taking care of your health, investing in your family, and creating the life you've earned. That's a completely different mindset. And missions require different strategies. One of the greatest mistakes veterans make is believing that compensation alone creates financial security. It doesn't. Financial security comes from combining multiple resources wisely. Your VA disability compensation, your military retirement if applicable, your thrift savings plan, your civilian retirement accounts, Social Security, emergency savings, estate planning, insurance, state veterans benefits, healthcare benefits. Now, when those pieces begin working together, your financial future becomes much stronger than any single benefit could ever provide. That's why I encourage veterans to think bigger than the next claim. Think about the next 20 years. Ask yourself questions like, have I named beneficiaries on all of my accounts? Do I understand the survivor benefits available to my family? Have I developed a retirement income strategy? Do I know which state benefits I'm entitled to receive? Have I created a will? Have I established powers of attorney? Do I understand how Medicare, TRICARE, and VA healthcare may work together later in life? Those questions may not generate exciting headlines on YouTube, but they change lives. They protect families. They create peace of mind. That's the kind of guidance I want this channel to provide. Now, let me share something I've learned after decades of reviewing claims. The veteran who tend to have the least stress aren't necessarily the ones with the highest ratings. They're the ones who understand their benefits. Knowledge reduces anxiety. Understanding replaces fear. Confidence comes from education. That's one of the reasons I started this channel. I wanted veterans to have access to clear, balanced information without the sensation that too often surrounds military and VA topics. I don't want to scare you into filing. I don't want to scare you into avoiding claims. I want to help you think strategically, because strategic thinking serves veterans for a lifetime. So, let's answer the question we've asked at the beginning. Should you file more claims after receiving a 100% VA disability rating? Sometimes, absolutely. If a new presumption condition applies to you, if you may qualify for special monthly compensation, if there's legitimate issues involving an effective date, if correcting an important error could affect your benefits, if another service-connected condition meaningfully protects you or your family, then filing another claim may be exactly the right decision. But if you're filing simply because you believe every diagnosis must be automatically become another claim, regardless of whether it serves a meaningful purpose, it may be time to pause and ask better questions. Remember what I told you earlier. Don't ask, can I file? Ask, what will filing accomplish? That single question changes everything. It moves you from reacting to thinking, from chasing to planning, from uncertainty to wisdom. And that's exactly where I hope every veteran arrives. Now, before we close, let me leave you with one final thought. When I think back to that veteran whose file stayed on my desk because claim after claim kept arriving, I don't remember him because of the number of conditions he claimed. I remember him because I wish someone had sat down with him and explained that reaching 100% wasn't the end of one journey, only to begin another race. It was the beginning of a new responsibility. The responsibility to become a wise steward of the benefits he had earned. That's what I want from you. Not just more benefits, more understanding. Not just another claim, better decisions. Not just financial security, peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't simply to win your claim. The goal is to build a life where your benefits become one part of a larger picture, a picture of stability, purpose, and freedom after service. If this video has helped you better understand how to think about filing additional claims after reaching 100%, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. Every Sunday, we dive deep into military benefits, retirement, VA disability, and long-term wealth building strategies. And throughout the week, we continue those conversations with practical guidance designed to help you avoid costly mistakes and make confident decisions. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. If you're comfortable sharing, tell us this. What was the biggest surprise you learned after receiving your VA disability rating? Your experience may help another veteran who's just beginning this journey. For your next video, I recommend watching 10 military benefits you're probably not using, but should. It pairs perfectly with today's discussion because understanding all of your earned benefits is just as important as understanding your disability compensation. And so there you have it. I wish you all blessings and blessings, and I'll see you in the next one. Shalom.